Jason Mitchell.
And I'm E.T. Mobley.
Welcome to today's episode of this Funkin Life podcast. Today we're going to be talking about one of our current singles, Forever People, and we're going to talk about the writing and recording process of it, as well as the video that we made to go along with it. So Eric, that day that we came up with that groove, it was a very spontaneous thing. We just kind of all started playing just about at the same time. And talk about how that felt in that moment when you heard that groove going for the first second.
Well, first thing I want to say is all three of us locked in at the same time. We all heard something right away, and I think that's pretty rare when that happens.
Yep.
The second thing for me was the bass line, which is a pretty interesting bass line. It's a kind of bass line where it never stops. It's like a juddering type of a circular bass line, which inspired me right away on guitar, and then I started hearing some things on the keyboard as well.
Yeah, I don't know where I got that idea from, but I just jumped on it, and as soon as I started playing that bass lick, Julian jumped on it, and then you jumped on it too. So it's just one of those things where everything came together spontaneously, and those moments are rare, but you appreciate them when they happen. So after we had that initial groove going, it was basically like a 2-chord vamp back and forth. You kind of took that work tape home, and then you came up with a really cool bridge to go with that. Kind of has a flavor of like Steely Dan. It's got some interesting jazzy chords in it.
Thank you.
Takes it to a totally different place, totally different key temporarily. Talk about the process of coming up with that bridge.
Well, I think it's nice, and we're talking about approaching songwriting, is that when you establish a groove, and in some songs it works to just maintain a groove, and then as long as you got a bunch of other things going on with vocals and horns or other instrumentation, it's okay to stay in that groove. But some songs, it's nice to be able to take the listener to a different place for a temporary time.
Right, I like that.
And that's an approach that you hear a lot, especially in 70s, funk fusion, funk music. So I just kind of took on that inspiration and wanted to take it somewhere and give it another life for a minute.
It's a pretty challenging set of chord changes to play over. So we had one of our friends come in, Jerry Donato, who's a fantastic sax player, and he blew over that thing and he laid down some amazing solo licks.
Oh yeah.
How did that make you feel when you heard what he did on that?
Well, first of all, he's just an absolutely fantastic musician, and his ability to just come in to the studio right away and hear that, without much preparation, just speaks volumes about his experience.
He's good like that. So we have a vamp that's kind of got that propulsive groove going to it. Then we have the bridge. I'm going to talk a second about the lyrics because as I was listening to the track, it kind of felt like one of those early 70s funk grooves where, bands back then weren't afraid to kind of say what was on their mind. Social consciousness was a thing back then, and we kind of have taken up that mantle a little bit because we feel things like everybody. So I kind of got the idea to call the song Forever People when I was reflecting on the fact that some politicians get themselves elected and they never want to go away once they get power. They don't want to give it up. And we don't have any way to get rid of them except by voting. And some of these people are con men or shysters of some sort. So basically the lyrics reflect kind of a walk through history for the last few thousand years when it just became a thing where some of the worst people in the world get themselves insinuated into power and they just never want to give it up. They never leave. And we're just kind of stuck with them. In our lifetimes, we don't know any different. It can last 5, 10, 20, 30 years, depending on what country you're in. So that's where Forever People came from. And we have a video that goes with that. So because the subject matter is kind of on the dark side, because these people are monstrous dictators who kill people, I made a video that was kind of lighthearted and, more on the funny side. Because, the only way to diffuse these people is to take the piss out of them. So I made some jokes and, we put some funny imagery up there. Eric, talk to me about your feelings about how our band sometimes has a message in our music, kind of hearkening back to the old days of the 60s and the 70s when bands did have something to say. It wasn't all baby, baby, although sometimes you got to go there too. Talk about our mission.
Well, I think it'd be safe to say that we are a message band, if you will. We do take on the idea that bands back in yesteryear spoke more about what they were feeling, what was on their minds, and so we take liberty in doing that. Yes, we do write love songs, and we're certainly not opposed to writing love songs. It's just that that's not our primary focus. Our focus is about message, and we kind of take pride in that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to tie in with the fact that our band is very diverse. We have, we're a multiracial band, we're a multi-gender band. At this point, we're even a multi-generational band. So we're coming at this from a lot of different perspectives, but basically it's about tolerance and equality. So a lot of our songs reflect the fact that if some nasty shit is going down in the world, where some people are having their rights taken away, or some people are trying to grab more than their share at the expense of other people, then I feel that that's fair game for us to step up and say something, just like anybody. We're not claiming to have the absolute truth, but as songwriters, you basically have a platform, and you can choose to use that to say something that's meaningful, or you can use it for something more personal, maybe a smaller topic that still has meaning to you on a personal level. So in this particular song, we kind of went to more of a macro thing in the world. Eric, talk about the fact that some songwriters have blazed a trail for others by becoming more socially conscious and not being afraid to speak their minds, even in the face of a lot of criticism and maybe at the risk of having their records burned or boycotted or some other crap. Talk about the precedent for people like us wanting to say something.
Sure. Well, I can go back to an artist like Nina Simone or Gil Scott-Heron. People
Curtis Mayfield.
People that really had more of an angst to spread message. Nina Simone once made a quote saying that if you're a songwriter, what are you doing with your platform? And I believe what she meant by that was, as songwriters, we have an obligation, we have a responsibility to spread message when, we are living in the world around us and being impacted by what we see.
I guess the most obvious parallel would be Philly International with us, because there was a whole label run by two guys, Gamble and Huff, who they used their artists as a vehicle to talk about important things to them. And some of it was personal things, like with the OJs, they could talk about, 992 arguments with your woman, but you could also talk about, the evils of money, people being put down, politically. So, we kind of feel a kinship with that. And, we're not trying to preach to anybody, but there are some things that are worth saying. And that's why we occasionally go there with our songs.
Absolutely. Social injustice. I mean, we know that it's out there. And so, I do believe that there is a responsibility for conscientious, songwriters to say something about that. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll catch you on the next episode of this Funkin' Life podcast.
Please check out our Patreon page below for all kinds of exclusive content from our band Calumet. We have live concert clips, there's photos, unreleased songs, and more. We really appreciate your support.